Well, how much do you want me to read?
I guess it ends
It's
here.
a long poem. Oh, here,
Could you just read that poem, the whole thing? I guess it's just a page and the bottom of that page. You can take a minute and.
What?
You still think there's any other? Okay.
No, I don't know how much.
You wouldn't have, I suppose this is out of print, isn't it? This, yeah.
This one might be, yes. I can get a copy for you.
I would appreciate it if you
Sure.
can.
This is also a book of his letters, which came out a few years ago,
Oh.
which I could see if I can get.
Now, Dorothy asked me if I had any letters from him, and I did, but I don't think she included them. I saw,
Oh, I'm
no.
not sure what.
no, I don't
yeah,
think she did, yeah. I'd love to see them sometime. Yeah.
Sure.
You want me to read this? Yeah,
Yeah, whatever. How are we doing?
No?
Okay.
Well, the poem which I've always been very fond of, by Mark Van Doren, and which illustrates this feeling about the American past, and especially the Mississippi Valley, from which he came after all, is the book called The Distant Runners. It's based on a legend that 6 great horses of Spain, set free after his death by De Soto's men, ran west and restored to America the wild race lost there some thousands of years ago. Ferdinand de Soto lies soft again in river mud. Birds again, as on the day of his descending, rise and go straightly west, and do not know of feet beneath that faintly thud. If I were there another time, between the proper sky and stream, if I were there and saw the 6 abandoned mains that ran along, I could sing the fetlock song that now is chilled within a dream. Ferdinand de Soto, sleeping in the river, never heard 24 Spanish hooves fling off the iron and cut the green, leaving circles new and clean, while overhead the wing tips whirred. Neither I nor any walker by the Mississippi now can see the dozen nostrils open half in pain for death of men, but half in gladness, neighing then as loud as loping would allow. On they rippled, tail and back, a prairie day, and swallows knew a dark, uneven current there, but not a sound came up the wind, and toward the night their shadow thinned before the black that flooded through. If I were there to bend and look, the sky would know them as they sped and turned to sea. But I am here, and they are far, and time is old. Within my dream the grass is cold, the legs are locked, the sky is dead.
There's always that sense of recalling those roots in his. Do you find that, and there's so much of, in much of his work, so much of the pastoral poet in him, do you find that there's a place for that today, that people can understand that in the same way as perhaps they used to? Because we're so out of touch with nature in so many ways.
Yes, but there is, of course, a tremendous nostalgia for America, for nature in America, precisely because the earth is so polluted, and because some of the most beautiful places in America, I'm thinking about Northwest Washington, where now we know, according to this morning's Times, that all the ground around Hanford is hopelessly polluted, poisoned, and that there's no accident that there's so much cancer running around among the people there. But the difference is, see, that Mark Van Doren knew these spaces, you know. When you go down, when you go along the river valleys of Mississippi, there are places where you can see the old Indian tumuli, you know, the great mounds. If you have an interest in the American past, an interest in the past of the American earth, what I'm talking about, then you go around to these mounds and you investigate them, the rest of it. But a lot of people don't see them. I think it's typical of our period that people used to see the earth from a train or from a wagon, and now they see it from the sky. And that's in that way, the airplane is very typical of people who are really removed from the ground, the earth, you see, There used to be people who were tramps, so-called, who constantly tramped up and down. And I have a great deal of sympathy for that particular thing itself, you see.
How is Frost's outlook on nature different from, let's say, Marx?
Well, Frost was a very great poet, and he had a very complex, rather bitter attitude toward human life. Frost is the only great poet we've had of marriage, for example, in the 20th century. I don't think Mark Van Doren was a poet of marriage. He was too reticent, and in any way, his life was much more untroubled than Robert Frost's life. Robert Frost's life was a terrible one in many ways. And, but he was a remarkable poet. He was very, very, very honest. He's my favorite American poet of the 20th century. I never get tired of seeing him, but I'm always amazed because American poetry nowadays lacks that sense of tragedy. It lacks that very bitter quality which he got into certain things, which he got into Fire and Ice, and walking alone in the streets at night. American poets today, a lot of them, not all of them, but certainly a lot of them, tend to be faultless in style. They never make a mistake when it comes to style, but they tend to be observers. And frankly, they have no great sense of values, what's going on. That's the real problem. Life has become just terribly, entirely personal. Now, Frost, when he wrote about personal things, knew that every person's life has an element of struggle, even of agony in it, in certain respects, and he was not afraid to touch on that, you see. I think it can be said, in all frankness, that Mark Van Doren's poetry was not up to that level because, well, let me end with this. I think that he was either too untroubled or, being a human being, didn't want to get into trouble, so to speak. I think also, in that respect, the academic life, though he was magnificent at it, is not always good for a writer. You are surrounded by the great books, the great examples. You have an example to give to your students. But most of all, the academic life is, if you reach a certain level, a very cushy life. It's one of the most comfortable lives in the world. I can't think of any career in America that pays so much at certain levels for doing so little. And what you do, frankly, is your own work, which is okay because your own work adds to the prestige of the university and adds, as in science and elsewhere, it adds to the welfare of mankind. But the fact is that it's a strange kind of life, you see, in which you, in a sense, are afraid to step out of line in many ways. I myself love teaching, but I hate being a professor. Teaching is great. Being a professor can be a lot of nonsense because you're always aware of position and titles, the rest of it, And everybody is doctor this and doctor that, you see. Or else nowadays, they're all pseudo-revolutionaries, The idea of being a doctor is gone. What you get right now is this outrageous business of teachers indoctrinating their students, you see, and trying to tell them that if you're against the established order, you somehow are better than other people. Well, the established order is still here, isn't it?
That's a very good place to stop.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Now, some.
All right. Okay. Could you compare my grandfather with his brother Carl?
Mark and Carl were very different people. Mark was quiet.
Okay, that's very good.
Right. Okay.
That's it.
Yeah.
At
Next
one
question.
point, he said Brearley, yes, Brearley. Do you want,
No, that's not it.
that's not necessary?
I don't think so.
More like real
Mr. Kazin
questions.
had asked,
Yeah,
okay.
More like real questions.
You said it is interesting, I remember reading once, he is frank but impenetrable. Do you think that is true of Mark?
Okay. I remember reading that Carl once said of my grandfather that he's apparently frank, actually impenetrable. Was that something that you saw also in him?
Yeah, I think that was a very shrewd analysis of your grandfather. I think it was true about him.
Good.
Terrific, thank you.
Okay.
One
Next
more.
One more.
Was there another edge to Mark Van Doren,
Okay.
other than the glow which everyone speaks of? Was there
Okay.
another side?
Actually, I remember you saying once that a poet is half a savage but only half. All right, so
Who said that?
you once said that a poet is half a savage, but only half. I was reading that once. And
Did I say that? I'm glad I
Okay.
said it.
here's the
Don't
question.
look at us, please.
That's what happens when you write. People.
It's certainly true, but I'm glad I remember. Thank you very much.
Was there
Was
another
there an edge to Mark?
Do it again.
Okay. Was there an edge to Mark that you were interested in finding out, or that you experienced at any time?
I never really saw the edge there. I think it was there. I'm sure it was there, but I never saw it myself.
Good.
Right.
You brought up his Jewish background. Can you tell us more about that,
About
Trilling?
trilling. Oh,
Watch
Um,
the dynamics sneaking up.
okay. You ready? You brought up Lionel Trilling's Jewish background and how he was in a way trying to cover it up.
No.
No.
I never say trying to cover it up.
Oh, okay.
No, wait a second. I don't.
So let's not do that.
No, wait. That's very.
I'm
Wait a
writing the
second. This is
question
not.
the way-
I want to make. Let's a second.
Yeah.
If that I never said that, and I don't want that to appear
Sure.
or anything like. He was not trying to cover it up or anything like that. I was explaining that there's a subtle difference there. That he lived in a
Talk to
period.
Adam, please.
That he flourished in a period where people were much more self-conscious of being Jewish. Now, that's all I
No,
said.
I misunderstood. I'm sorry.
No, that's very important because I don't
Sure.
want to get.
No, we won't. We won't.
You see, this is, now let me explain. Mrs. Trilling is still alive. She is, you might say, a very vehement character. I don't want any more explosions about this.
No,
No, I hope you'll take
pretend
care
it,
of this.
it never happened because it won't be shown.
Okay, very good.
It's very clear. Okay,
I think that's good.
that's fine.
Okay.